Welcome to Nowhere to Hide. I'm Brian Hyde. Today we're going to talk about a competition to be the freest state in the union. And you know what? Idaho has done really well, but we've got another state that is breathing down our necks. And I want to share with you some reasons why this is the kind of friendly combination more states should be a part of. Details are coming up.
All reporters are biased, the Idaho Press Club are biased, all media, newspaper, radio.
To be completely blunt here, Brian, and there are plans to expand
indoctrination.
That's right.
Well, Idahoans are also concerned.
Horror shot. That line would be moving a little bit farther west.
I'm like crying.
Nobody wants to see
Dark money is influencing policy in our state.
Well, that's not how this works.
Once again, welcome to Nowhere to Hide. You know, it's fun to see states actually moving in the direction of freedom. I know this time about 5 years ago, a lot of us were wondering where all of that COVID madness, the lockdowns, the mask mandates, the distancing mandates, the vaccine mandates that followed, we wondered where that was going to lead. And thankfully, it apparently woke a few people up. And Idaho has done unusually well. We struggled for a few years, but last year it seems like we had a very focused legislature that actually actively cut government. In fact, without resting on our laurels here or breaking our arm, patting ourselves on the back, let's take a quick look at one of the hugest wins of all. Idaho leads the nation with landmark medical freedom legislation. This was enormous because this was where the source of a lot of our problems came from, of people assuming power that really wasn't theirs to use, and then businesses jumping on board saying, well, we have to do what this regulator or that regulator says, and it just spiraled into this ugliness that pitted neighbor against neighbor and undermined trust in the medical establishment. You can see this being played out right now with some of the turmoil at the Centers for Disease Control, now that Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is in there reforming things that needed to be reformed, and allowing people to find the exit, sometimes with a little bit of help. So just a quick bit of detail on the landmark medical freedom legislation. Idaho passed a sweeping Medical Freedom Act banning all vaccine and medical mandates in schools, workplaces, and government services. Now, hospitals were accepted, but that may have more to do with healthcare workers and what takes place in hospitals. But the bottom line is no medical mandates, no vaccine mandates, no forced intervention on people in schools, workplaces, and government services. People have the right to say no without fear of losing jobs, services, or education. And I love what Dr. Don Michael says here. Shouldn't every state protect its people like that? Now, before we answer that question, I want you to just ponder this picture of Brian Holmes looking frustrated. For no reason at all. I just thought I would throw that in there for a little bit of breaking up of the monotony here. Florida has now moved to kill vaccine mandates. In fact, their state attorney general came right out and said they're slavery. And he's not mincing his words on this. This is the state of Florida's attorney general. Here is what he had to say. Joseph Ladapo said, every last one of these mandates is wrong and it drips with disdain and slavery. Now, he's not using that to be hyperbolic, because what this comes down to is who owns you? Is it your body, or does it belong to some political subdivision that can do with it as it chooses? When people try to force you to do something against your better judgment or without your informed consent, you are being forced into a type of slavery in which you are not allowed to own yourself. Someone else is exercising ownership. So Dr. Ladapo says, who am I or anyone else to tell you what you should put in your body? Who am I to tell you what your child should put in their body? He says, I don't have that right. Your body is a gift from God. What you put into your body is because of your relationship with your body and God. But pretty much every state has these mandates. Well, your kids can't attend school unless they have this many vaccines and so forth. And he's just saying that it's wrong. So this is one of the places where they have let out. And Florida right now is actually neck and neck with us in terms of what can we do to lessen the footprint of government in the lives of the average citizen. Now, there's another issue here that they may actually be leading out, and we need to make sure that we don't get beat on this one. DeSantis determined to let Floridians vote on property tax elimination. He's not just talking about a reduction. He's talking about eliminating property taxes. And we'll get into some of the reasons why this is among the most immoral. But this is the breakdown of the proposed plan. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is pursuing a 2026 ballot measure to eliminate property taxes for Floridians on their primary homes. So this isn't so much a gift to the big nonprofits. By the way, have you seen how much nonprofits like hospitals, for instance, St. Luke's maybe, look in your direction, the millions, hundreds of millions of dollars that they take in, the amount of property that they own, and it's all tax-free. No property tax charged on them because, well, ostensibly they're doing, God's work. But the homeowners are the ones who really seem to pay the price even when you've paid off your home, you're still essentially paying rent to the real owner. And if you don't believe that, I would encourage you, if you're feeling froggy, stop paying your property tax and just watch and see if the real owner doesn't send men with guns and badges to claim that property and kick you out. So in Florida, the proposed plan is a constitutional amendment. Just about a week ago, DeSantis confirmed he's working with lawmakers on a concrete proposal for that ballot measure. It will target homestead properties. It would abolish property taxes on primary residences only. So, okay, if you have a few vacation houses sprinkled around, maybe you don't get that big of a break. But for people who just want to live in their property that they paid for and not have to pay for the privilege of using that property year after year after year, this could be a godsend. And he's also expressed support for cutting the tax by other means, including potential rebates for the current year. Wouldn't that be something? End up with a little bit of your own money back in your pocket. The economic rationale is that soaring property values have led to disproportionate tax increases for homeowners despite a lack of sales. I think that's been true here in Idaho too. Have you priced, the cost of homes? They're still up there in the stratosphere somewhere. Well, DeSantis asserts that local governments have benefited from that gusher of revenue when this has happened in Florida, and that eliminating the tax would actually be putting money back into the taxpayers' pockets. Now, there are those who get that this is a big deal. And in fact, I believe it's former State Senator Scott Herndon is back in the running, planning on running in 2026. That is one of the key elements of what he wants to run on, is eliminating the property tax. But you're still going to see a lot of resistance to this. And that comes primarily from the assumption that anything government is involved in is, by virtue of the fact government is involved, it's a good thing and should not possibly, have to be trimmed back or restricted in terms of how much revenue it requires. But it comes down to, as so many times it does, to the proper role of government. Something may be good, maybe even beneficial. I'll take, for instance, a suicide helpline or counseling services for young people. Okay, I could see that being a very important thing. But are we supposed to pretend that it can only be legitimate if it's happening through government and paid for by the taxpayers? See, there's a voluntary way of doing that. And there's actually a lot of great organizations out there that do incredible work. Some philanthropic, some of them are for profit, but the options are there. And government doesn't need to mulct the taxpayers in order to make everything good happen. But it seems like a lot of people, and this includes a lot of Republicans, have gotten into that mindset. And unfortunately, it just stays with us and haunts us, moving forward. There's another place where Idaho has led out, although we have been hampered somewhat. And in this case, it's restricting giving taxpayer-funded benefits to people who are here illegally. Now, we did get some decent legislation passed in this last legislative session, but there's also a lot of lobbying that goes into slowing down any attempts to address illegal immigration. And there's a great post here on Twitter from Michael Angeletta, who talks about what illegals cost Idaho in terms of education, Medicaid, welfare, law enforcement. This is according to the FAIR 2023 report. The fiscal burden of illegal immigration on United States taxpayers. Idaho taxpayers alone pay an estimated $200 million each year to supply free healthcare benefits, free education, housing assistance, other taxpayer-funded benefits. Now, if you're opposed to this, that doesn't mean that you're anti-human or you hate people because they don't speak your language or maybe their skin tone is different than yours. It comes down to, is it a proper role of government to provide those services? Is it reasonable to expect the taxpayers to foot the bill for this kind of thing? But there are some very powerful lobbying forces. In fact, if you look closely at this one, Idaho Dairymen's Association, the Idaho Farm Bureau Federation, and Idaho Association of Commerce and Industry, they have all done a lot to throw a wrench in the works to keep it easier for illegals to be here and to work for them. In other words, they're putting their profits over the needs of the taxpayers. This is one of the talking points highlighted at the bottom here. Unauthorized workers are productive members of our society, contributing economically and filling jobs Americans are not taking. But they're still here illegally. And no matter how you spin it, that's going to be a problem and still needs to be addressed. Isn't it interesting though that these big industry in bed with government types really like that low cost labor? There's kind of a little semi-slavery element to that. Well, it's not really slavery. I mean, after all, we're paying them, but it's as little as we can possibly pay. So, Florida, congratulations on your moving forward to eliminate property taxes. Congratulations on following Idaho's lead on eliminating those vaccine mandates. Wonderful stuff. We still have some work ahead of us, and this is going to require all of us to be informed and to be involved. I'm Brian Hyde, and this is Nowhere to Hide.
All reporters are biased. The Idaho Press Club are biased. All media, newspaper, radio.
To be completely blunt here, Brian, and there are plans to expand
indoctrination.
That's right.
Idahoans are also concerned.
Horror shot. That line would be moving a little bit farther west.
I'm like crying.
Nobody wants to see
Dark money is influencing policy.